Encounter starts out as one kind of movie and then completely changes into another, but does the combination of two genres provide a net result experience that I enjoyed? Stick around and I'll share my thoughts. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Encounter on Amazon Prime. The synopsis on Amazon reads, a decorated Marine goes on a rescue mission to save his two young sons from an unhuman threat. As their journey takes them in increasingly dangerous directions, the boys will need to leave their childhoods behind. Okay, so what is this thing? If you watch the trailer, it can kind of leave you guessing. It's like, what kind of experience is this? I'm gonna avoid spoilers as much as I can. I'll say that the basic plot skeleton is a man on the run with his two boys trying to stay off the grid as they search for a way to bring their dangerous situation to an end. It felt like a very misleading movie to me. Not so much in the marketing, which leaves plenty of room to guess what kind of movie this is, but in the first 40 minutes of the movie, this thing clearly presents itself as science fiction and really had me emotionally invested in the father who is caring deeply for his kids, and so I'm caring for him and his ability to protect his boys. Then 40 minutes in is a plot point that changes how viewers are meant to think and feel about the father in a major way. And the story goes from straight up sci-fi with some great drama to a drama with only very light sci-fi elements. Also, the movie actively deceives the audience in significant ways that to me felt like cheating. It will present a scene of significant length as completely true, giving me no detectable hint that I should question what I'm seeing, and then suddenly reveal that a character was sleeping, or something similar. Now, there have been many other movies that use the whole, you woke up and what we just saw, the horrible thing we just saw happen to them was just a dream. Other movies use that device and it doesn't bother me, and I think it's because they usually do that in a way that increasingly, as the dream progresses, gets a little bit crazier, a little bit more extreme, and hints in that way that maybe we shouldn't be trusting what we're seeing, And I prefer this more standard approach, I think, because it makes me lean forward and try to solve the mystery in front of me, and ask myself, what is going on here? What's true? What's going on? But Encounter's approach felt like it was to simply yank the rug out from under me without warning. And that just makes me feel like I wasted my time investing in moments or scenes that didn't really happen, didn't really count. These elements pulled me out of the movie and had me thinking on a meta level so much that even the dramatic climax of the movie just felt to me like the writer trying to poke and prod to trigger an emotional response, like, oh, this would really create tension if I suddenly had this character do that. Not because it felt like that's really what that character would do, or what I had seen, traits I'd seen in that character were naturally leading to this kind of moment. It's just like, no, having him do this right now would create great tension, and so let's write him as doing that, Now, maybe I wouldn't have felt that way if it hadn't been for the other rug yanked out from under me moments, but because of those, I was just kind of thinking more on a meta level. I couldn't seem to escape that kind of thought in my mind. I was just, once bitten and twice shy, and I didn't want to be pulled along one direction only to have the rug yanked out from under me whenever the writer next feels like it, which is kind of what the experience read to me as in the last 20 minutes or so. As far as the cast, really great performances, I thought. The child actors felt largely solid, and there were a few moments likely achieved through improv and trial and error, and they just had a lot of stuff to choose from on the cutting, in the cutting room, and they inserted these moments, where you could go back and forth, and the camera captured some really genuinely childlike moments that is like, oh, that's not acting. I think there's some kind of joke or something there on the set. They were having fun or something. They captured this moment and they contextualize it as a reaction to what this line was or whatever, And so I think that there was some great editing and directing that allowed some of those moments to be captured that felt really genuine from child performers, and I really appreciate that. But the standout to me was Riz Ahmed, who plays the father. I've seen him in other things, and I without going to IMDb, I couldn't tell you what I've seen him in. I think he's usually a supporting role, but he's always, stuck out to me. His face is very familiar to me, but he's not like a name that I just know off the top of my head. But I'm definitely ready to see him in more. He, in this movie, displayed, I thought, great subtext throughout, as his character is desperately trying to protect his boys while also trying to make them feel like there's nothing to be afraid of. He's trying to make things feel like a game and not put on them the tension that he's dealing with. And I certainly got a lot of extra mileage out of this movie because I'm a dad, I should add. I know what it's like when you have young kids and you're trying to take them on a plane or somewhere where you want them to not explode and get emotional and fussy and stuff like that. And so you have to, in those moments, do things that will keep them from, exploding and stuff. You can't, if you're feeling tense in the airport or whatever the situation is, you can't let that tension transfer to your kids because they don't know how to control themselves. And so they will just explode and fuss, and the whole situation will get so much worse. And so on a more life or death and intense kind of fictional scale, that's kind of what's being paralleled here. And so I really appreciated that subtext in Ahmed's performance as he's like trying to, and convincing to his boys, make it seem like everything's fine, where you could see behind his eyes, man, he's really freaked out and really concerned for them, So I really just enjoyed his performance a lot, and would enjoy seeing him in more stuff in the future. As far as the stunts and visuals go, I mean, there are some visual effects, especially early on. It's really front-loaded with those kind of visual effects and sci-fi stuff early on. Creepy moments of body horror. I'm always a sucker for body horror, and they were pretty good, I thought, for digital effects, but it would have been nice, I think, if they would have gone more practical. Okay, as far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, I don't know if it's intended or not. If the writer or director said, yeah, it was intended, I would have, I wouldn't be surprised. But in any case, the movie evokes and sometimes parallels, I think, the growing distrust and self-made segregation and separation we've experienced in the pandemic. Not just as a result of quarantine, but ideologically. People will have different views about vaccines or masks or any kind of, all these kind of political things that have also kind of flared up at the same time. There's these lines that we've drawn in the sand, and so we've separated ourselves from each other, and we don't really do well at being friends and getting along and loving people that maybe have very different views on things that matter a lot to us. And so likewise, in this movie, there's this strong sense of there being an us and a them. The dad and his boys are the us, and he's trying to protect them from his boys from the them out there. And the tensions between the two can quickly explode into hostility in this movie. And so I'm reminded a little, of how easy it has been in the last 2 years for people, especially in online interactions, but also in public places and things like that, for people to just get fired up and angry with each other because tensions are just high. And so I'm reminded that even as we are dealing as Christians with scary situations, with hot tempers, we have got to figure out a different way of living. We need to figure out how to be willing to confess when we have contributed to the tension. And I think that starts with not finding our identity and our sense of worth in what people think of us, but having God's view of us be the most important one, and the forgiveness that he gives us, caring about that more than anything else, finding our identity in that and our righteousness in that, allows us to take a real hard look at ourselves and say, you know what, I did add to the tension in this situation, and I should confess that. That I've contributed to the tension. And then we've got to figure out after that how to lead by loving, patient example instead of just by spouting off ideologies, but live by loving, patient example, even as we may feel surrounded by people who scare us, who we're trying to protect our kids from, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know exactly how to do that, but often the first thing we can do to diffuse hot tempers is to be humble and confess our fear, our shortcomings to those who stand opposed to us. That can be a great starting point for just diffusing the tension and just being transparent and human to the other person, instead of keeping our hard exterior up. Anyway, I have no idea what your preferences are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, yeah, skip this one. I mean, it really has some nice things in it, some nice performances. You will definitely emotionally connect with some stuff, especially in the first 40 minutes and even at other points after that, you know. So it's got some things that you really care about and like in movies. It has some things in common with the movie Frailty, which is one of your favorite horror movies of all time. But you're better off watching that one again. It's been long enough now, and it certainly will cover some of the same ground, scratch some of the same itches. Encounter is less a genre-bending movie and more a genre-swapping movie, and it does keep you guess. It does keep well, no, yeah, It doesn't keep you guessing, I should say, or leave you in stunned, challenged surprise like Frailty did, you know. It just kind of swaps genres halfway through, and instead you're just going to feel like it plays unfair tricks on you. There's some great performances, but the story is just going to fall flat for you. This one's rated R for language and some violence. And those are my thoughts on Encounter on Amazon Prime. Right now I'd like to take some time to write a tune for pre-made rhyme. I mean, I'm not really writing this one, but it's kind of becoming a December tradition, I think, so I'm just going to go with it. Made rhyme. The lyrics kind of never change, but the melody gets rearranged. I never know what I'll create to say how much I appreciate Gabriel Stinson, Brian Franklin, Olin D. Branham, Drew Up, Winston, Crutchfield, Libre, Justin D. Myers, Matthew Ridgway, Cosmic Fox, and Joel Nelson. Thank you for supporting me and SBP and CGC. And now to all who hear this tune, thank you as well. Please come back soon. Oh, that kind of worked out nice. Want to hear your name in song? Check out our page on Patreon. And that's it. I'd love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe. Click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making so much of my content possible. You can get info about the benefits of being an insider over at patreon.com/SpiritBlade Productions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.